Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Inspiration, motivation takes. Listen to the podcast. We're all about to talk about life. Our guests will share their life story. We want you to success in life and business. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk about life. We're going to speak on business. You're gonna shine bright. We are going to witness. Business with a servant's heart. With hosts Steve, Ramona, and Ray. Inspiration, education talks. Listen to the podcast.
BrainShare Business Mentors proudly presents BrainShare.us, the ultimate business education platform, delivering the proven systems, processes, tools, and knowledge that empower you to build the business of your dreams. With 13 high-powered courses encompassing over 240 lessons accessed online on your schedule. Running a business is the hardest thing you'll ever do. We've helped thousands of business owners gain the leadership, communication, and business skills needed to build the business of their dreams. We can help you. Choose your learning path. Scuba Squad is the premier membership program for today's business leaders with access to all BrainShare material and double our money-back guarantee. BrainShare Basics, the ultimate business framework course, a hard-hitting 13-week program to lay the necessary foundation to build the business of your dreams. Or take individual courses as you need them. Every course has dozens of lessons, with video, practical exercises, precise documentation, and the opportunity for direct feedback from a BrainShare mentor. All programs have our exclusive 30-day money-back guarantee. No questions asked, don't wait. Choose your path and start today.
Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. Doing business in life with a purpose. Serving others, yes, achieving success as well. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. We created this show for you because we want everyone to be motivated, inspired, and educated to make an impact in your world. Not the world, but in your world. We'll start there. And as you're listening to this guest is going to be incredible. How will you serve today? And what impact will you create today? Let's start today. Let's not wait till tomorrow. Let's do it today. Let's thank my sponsors, BrainShare.us. Drive business success and sustainability with BrainShare Business Mentors, where your business flourishes and your vision comes to life. Check out the link in the show notes. And pitchdb.com, be a guest in over 3 million podcasts, speak at over 11,000 conferences, and much more. Build your thought leader platform with incredible opportunities to show who you are. And I have a discount code in the show notes, or you can reach out to me and I'll get that for you as well. Now, I'm excited because I talk about impact, and for me, finance is a pain in the butt for a lot of people. They don't know numbers. Math can be a pain. They didn't do well. And money's emotional. That's why I love having Brian on the show today, because you need to really be a servant heart to be successful, I think, in the financial field. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve, for having me. I appreciate it.
So let's start off. Why did I like most about working in the corporate world?
I think for me, what I liked the most about working in the corporate world was just a lot of the friendships that I was able to make. Just so many different types of people with different. It's interesting, with different goals in mind. Some people wanting to move up, some people content being where they were. But just the diversity and just the friendships, that some of those friendships I still have today. So I think that was what I enjoyed the most about working in the corporate world, for sure.
And audience, this is why I have him on the show, because that's a servant heart right there. He never talked about money. You never talked about, being the president or, owning the company. You were like, hey, I made friends, built a network, and that's what it's all about. Okay, now let's transition. You've left the corporate world and now you started your own business. What's the hardest part of that?
Actually, it's funny. I think one of the hardest things for me was trying to be efficient with my time. In the corporate world, you get a lot of meetings scheduled for you and your calendar kind of gets full and booked up. And when you're an entrepreneur, you you have to do that on your own. You have to time block. You have to, because it's especially working from home as an entrepreneur too. That's even adds a whole nother complexity because it's easy to get distracted. And so I think that was one of my biggest challenges. I mean, there have been a lot of challenges, but that's probably one of the biggest ones for me.
As they say in business, you got to be uncomfortable to be comfortable, especially as an entrepreneur, even more so. And so you're talking about control. You like for you, and this is different for everybody, the control of your life, business life, was better for you when you become an entrepreneur, a business owner.
For sure. You know, I have a 6-year-old daughter and a 13-year-old daughter, and it was really a game changer to be able to spend time with them. You know, now I'm able to go, I take them to school most mornings, just being able to be there for them and pick them up for doctor appointments and things like that. It's just, yeah, those are the type of things that money can't buy. But the time that you get back is amazing as an entrepreneur. Now, it's not always that way. Then there are things I miss, right? So there's pros and cons. But you know, I try to look at the positive ones.
And as an entrepreneur or business owner, family comes first. You can fit things in your day, dance recital. I don't know if they dance, but something like that comes up. You go, hey, I can't meet 3 to 5, but I can meet with you after, you know, whatever that is. Is that kind of what you're saying with control?
Right. Yeah, I get to set my schedule. So that's the nicest part about it is I can decide when I'm going to work and when I'm not going to work. You know, I still work a lot of hours, but I just do it like you said. I'm able to schedule it around my kids' activities and things like that. So,
What's your biggest challenge of owning your own business?
I think actually, you know, probably the biggest challenge for me is the marketing aspect of it. I'm not a salesperson at all. And I don't think I come across as a salespeople. You know, I'm in an industry where, you know, I have people invest and bring money to me, and so I guess you could say I kind of do raise capital and things like that. But so in that industry, you know, I guess having a sales personality would be beneficial. I don't have that by nature, and I don't. That's just not my nature. So marketing is a weak spot for me, honestly. And so, you know, since I went off and started doing my being an entrepreneur and doing my business full time a couple of years ago, I've wasted way too much money on marketing ideas and things that I thought would work. And that's probably my biggest struggle is knowing what to do from a marketing standpoint. That's still a struggle today.
Brian, fantastic lesson you just said. You tried things, you took action. And I talk to businesses, and you probably do too. It's like, well, I'm not sure, and then they wait. They don't take it, whether right or wrong. Take the action and deal with the repercussion later, the consequences when that happen. What's your thought on action as a business owner?
It's huge. You know, when I first started, so real estate investing is the industry that I'm in, and you know, one of my very first flip that I did of a single family house. I remember standing on the front porch talking to my real estate agent, and at that point, I had educated myself. I had read books and you know done all the courses and all that type of stuff. And I was standing there and I was kind of hem-hawing, you know, am I going to buy this? Am I not? And he was like, look, Brian, you're at a paralysis by analysis at this point. You just got to do something. You just got to make a decision. You got to take action. And so I did it. And I made, I don't know, I think about $800 on the deal. I didn't even have a contractor lined up. I asked a neighbor next door if they knew a contractor that I could work with. And so, but learned a ton. But to your point, I mean, education is super important. You know, educate yourself really well. So when you do take action, you're as prepared as you can be. You're going to make mistakes. Nothing's going to go perfect. You're going to learn a lot of things. But the action, and especially in the real estate industry, that's where a lot of people struggles. They don't take that first step. They're afraid to take that first step, and I guess that's really in any industry for that matter.
Yeah.
But
And I'm going to pull something up that you said, which is what I talk about: your network's your net worth, and you proved it by saying I made $800, but I went to my neighbor, who maybe you don't know that, maybe you did know well, but that's your network. Go, hey, I need a contract. You know, a good one. They found you one, and way you go. Talk about building your network as a business owner.
so that's one of the things that I think that's one of the things that the corporate world doesn't provide for you is networking, right? I think in the corporate world, you tend to get complacent and just are surrounded by people. And again, I made a lot of great friendships and that's great. but networking was never top of mind when I was in the corporate world. And once I got into my own business, I realized, whoa, I got to network. I have to network. I have to get around other people, and it's important to be around people that are doing the types of things that you want to do. If you want to become a millionaire, you need to be around a millionaire. That's just the way it works. And I remember though in my corporate job, an executive, he got let go, but he made it a point to network and have breakfast every couple weeks with this group of folks, right? And when he got let go, he had a job within a week because
Oh my God.
he had that network and he had those connections. And so that's where he was kind of doing something that you don't normally hear about in the corporate world, but he was creating a network for himself, and it definitely paid off.
That's a great story for you people out there in corporate. I mean, what a fantastic story. Nothing big. It was just breakfast, hour breakfast, whatever the time, and just stay connected. How you doing? What's going on? Maybe you help each other, maybe you don't. But it's
Hmm.
that building that relationship is huge. Now you're in real estate and finance, equity. It's such an emotional ride for people. Money. They're fearful, going bankrupt, closing businesses. Do I buy a home for all that's tied to it? How much is mindset part of somebody getting into finance, whether they're investing or buying a home?
I think it's huge. Mindset is everything, and one of the things I do like about real estate versus the stock market, and I was a stockbroker and financial advisor for 10 years, so I do have some experience in that space. And one of the things I do like about real estate is that it tends to help take some of that emotion out of it, because unlike the stock market, right? You can't just push a button and sell your house if you hear some bad news or something, right? So that help. You have to be more calculated in making your decision. You have to go get a real estate agent or whatever the case may be, right? It's going to take some time, which is going to give you time to think and figure out if that's really what this is the right time to be doing this, right? So I do think that, but being a stockbroker and I was putting in a lot of trades for people. People would be calling me up doing option trades and stock trades and everything. And I remember emotion is a huge part of it. Actually, so I was a stockbroker on 9/11, and I remember the day. I can't remember exactly what day it was, but when the stock market reopened, I remember customers calling up buying one share of stock just because they wanted to try to do what they could to try to help the stock market and try to help the country as a whole and everything. And so that's something that's kind of stuck with me. But I remember that piece, and so it can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing, but emotion is definitely a part of it.
That's a really cool story that I'm going to share with people too. That's where the United States people can come together and help. And
Hmm.
man, I didn't know that. That's thank you. And,
Yeah.
and I love your background as you got this realtor, real estate business, but you're a financial advisor experience. I haven't heard that too many times. I know a lot of realtors, and not that it's bad. You could be a realtor, not be a financial advisor. But
Hmm.
how's that work with your, all that experience help with your business now and working with people?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It gives me some different perspectives
Mm.
than some of my peers might have. In my industry and in the multifamily industry, there's a lot of investing that goes on in apartment complexes and investing in a single apartment complex, which is great. But what I've learned, and leaning on some of my experiences, diversification is better. And so that's why I started my fund, where my fund is investing in multiple apartment buildings. So when somebody invests in my fund, they're able to be diversified across the state of Texas in different apartment buildings, and instead of it all being in one apartment building. So I think it's just some of the risk adjusted return factors and things like that. I've kind of leaned on that pretty heavily.
Yeah, and I like that. I'm learning this too because I mentioned in the green room about the couple I'm going to introduce you to, business partners. But that's because I have a piece of property. Praise the Lord, my dad inherited from me, and it's always battling. What do I do with it? But what I like what you're doing is you take my money. Like if I put it in the bank and I get 0.0000001%, if anything, right? You'll take somebody's money and invest in these multifamily projects. And as
Hmm.
they grow, you start giving back returns for it. Because I want to
Right.
break this down for people that are listening on, because I think it's a valuable lesson. And it doesn't really matter the kind of money you make, right?
Right. I mean, and it just, it depends on, and there's so many different ways to get into
Mm-hmm.
real estate in general, right? You can just like me, I started in single family buying a rental house. The very first house that I ever moved into, I actually moved straight from my parents' house to my first house. I've never rented. And not that there's anything wrong with renting because I
No,
invest in a lot
right.
of apartment buildings now, so we need renters. But
You love renting.
I love, yeah, exactly. But I moved into a little HUD foreclosure and I house hacked, meaning I rented out one of the rooms to a coworker, and so that was kind of my foray into real estate investing, and that's a lot of people when they get in with a single family or a duplex or something like that. That's kind of their first, because I think it's easier, it resonates with people more than going out and investing their money in a $20 million apartment complex somewhere, right? Like that just seems
Yeah.
overwhelming and daunting. And plus you have control, you can control that property that you're investing in. And when you're investing in these apartments, a lot of times you're giving up that control. And so some people don't feel comfortable with that.
Right. And what I like what you're doing is somebody's like, I don't know what to do. This is not a Google it, go, I'm going to learn how to do this and go. I guess you could, but it's a little scary when you're talking 50, 60, $100,000. You've created this wheel that you find very successful. That's your superpower. That's probably the wrong word, but you know what I mean. That's why I would come to you instead of try to do it myself, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, you want to lean on people that have the experience and have been doing it for a while and have a track record and things like that. And one of the biggest things too, and what's interesting in my industry is the whole know, like, and trust. Right. That's really what's interesting is that's probably that's even more important than that particular deal that you're investing in, because a bad group of partners can turn a good deal bad, right? Doing the wrong things. And so, it's important, how the numbers look on that apartment complex and what that investment looks like. But I would argue it's even more important about who you're investing with and who you're trusting to make sure they're doing it right.
And know, like, and trust, you have to build a relationship, which is what you're doing, which is
Right.
why I love what you're doing, because it's not, hey, I've got this fund, give me 100,000, I'll make you 20% a year for the next 5 years. And like, oh, who are you? I know your name's Brian. That's it.
Yeah.
Especially with
Yeah.
money. I think money is the outlier with this. If you're my plumber and you go, hey, I'll fix your pipes, and okay, you don't fix my pipes again, a plumber, maybe it's $300 but we're talking money. What's your greatest asset for your investors?
I think for my investors, probably my greatest asset is just that I'm genuine, that I put them first, and that they can just talk to me like anybody else. And honestly, I consider investors my friends. I don't, we were talking about networking earlier. When I network, I don't go talk to people and stuff thinking, okay, well, what can I get out of this person? How much do I think they'll invest? Or, are they a doctor, or are they a plumber? Like you said, what am I going to get out of this? I just look at it as an opportunity to make friends, and I just leave it there. And if something comes out of it, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. I went and spoke at a local college here in San Antonio, and these are some young freshman kids and stuff, and it was pretty awesome to talk to them. And I actually told them that exact same story. I said, networking is probably one of the best things you can do, and start now while you're in school, in college, because you never know when those relationships may come around, and you may be able to help them, or they may be able to benefit you. And so build those networks now. But I told him, I said, you have to look at it like you're just making a friend, and just leave it at that.
Well, I love what you just said there, because I started at 18 and I'm 62 now. I've got a huge network, and you just felt it when I offered some introductions.
Right.
That is one of the greatest tips. If you're a young person listening to this, what Brian just said is $1 million tip. Seriously, will make you $1 million. It's not going to be tomorrow, right, Brian? It's going to be
Right.
5, 10, 15 years when
Yeah.
you go from corporate to start your own business, or you move up the corporate ladder.
Yeah.
Man, I love what you're saying. It sounds so simple. Is it really that simple?
It really is. I mean,
No, I mean,
in terms of how you approach networking and meeting people, I do think it's that simple. I just think you need to just throw all that other stuff out of the window and just try to make friends. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't try to work in some potential opportunities at some point, right? I mean, you have to do that, right? I mean, otherwise you won't succeed in your business. But I think you let that happen naturally. I think that's probably the biggest thing for me is to let it happen naturally.
yeah, and that's a great tip too. A lot of great tips here. I keep saying that. It's awesome. You're awesome. And that's the ask part. Like, here's a perfect example. I'm a friend of yours, and I won the lottery at $250,000. You find out, and you call me and go, "Hey, I hear you won the lottery." You would sit down, "Hey, let's discuss possible opportunities." Not like, "Hey, you got $250,000, Steve," which happens with lottery winners, and go, "Hey, you need to invest in me right away. Let's get you some money right away." Right?
Right.
Am I thinking how
Right.
you would? Okay.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're 100% right. Yeah, for sure.
I don't know many people in finance that say call their clients friends. I'm sure they do, but that's a good thing. I like that.
Well, I take it. It's these people are investing a lot of money with me, and they're trusting me, and they're putting that trust in me, and I don't take that lightly at all. So yeah, I mean, I look at them as friends for sure, and it's not just because they're it's not just because they're investing money with me, but because that's how I start off the conversations with them. Like I said, when I meet somebody for the first time, that's how the conversation starts. And so, whether they invest with me or not, that's not gonna dictate if they're gonna be a friend or not. It's just that's how we usually start anyway. So, kind of makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and then on the flip side, as any friends, we've had have removed friends from our inner circle. I call it. It's the same thing. You get people, maybe, and I'm making these scenarios. I don't know if it happens, but you get the friend, you invest, and they're like, "Oh, I'm calling you every day. Hey, I only went up 5%. This. That's the other side of a servant's heart. Is you got to say no as well too, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that can definitely happen too, and that goes back to family and things like that, and
Yeah.
putting family first. And but I do have a kind of an interesting story. Back when I was I was a financial advisor and stockbroker, I used to have a customer that would call up every month, and he would ask me for the balances in his mutual funds, and he was in his 80s at this point, mid to late 80s, and he couldn't hear real well. He'd kind of slowed down a little bit, and so he would ask me, to say each number. So like if it was $1,000, it would be 1,000,000.00. But actually slower than that, like so he could write it down and everything. And this went on for a few years, and then what I didn't know at the time was that he actually, once he passed away, I found out he'd actually left a little bit of money to me, and I was like, where did this come from? So it was amazing that I was just taking care of him, and I guess, yeah, and I know he also had a banker locally that he left something to as well, and so just doing the right things. You never know how that might help you in the future. So
Thank you for sharing that story, because that's exactly what a servant's heart is. You did it because you wanted to help them, serve them, support them, and then in the future things like that happen. You unexpectedly go, "Hey, here's a little bit of money. It doesn't matter how much, $100, 100, it doesn't matter the amount. It's that you made the impact, like I started with the show, with somebody without the thought of any gain at all, just
right.
a servant's heart." So I had to say that, because that's what this show's all about. Now learning about you, you truly have that huge servant's heart. We're getting to the end of the show, but what's interesting is we talked about college. Went back to college in my 40s. You went to college while you're still in your corporate world. Why?
Yeah, I knew that I wanted to get into finance, but I didn't know, I didn't want to go and get a degree and then get the job and realize, oh, that's not what I want to do. The funny thing about it, though, so that's why I got into the financial services industry. Then I got my degree because I liked it. So that's when I got my finance degree and everything. The funny part about it was, as soon as I got my degree, I actually ended up switching fields and went into more of an IT role. It wasn't because I didn't like finance. It was just I was ready for something a little bit different than what I had been doing. And the opportunity presented itself. So literally within like a few weeks of getting the degree, I ended up changing into doing something totally different. But then full circle now with my own business, I'm back into the finance field again. So, but that was part of my reason. I just kind of wanted to get in the industry and try it out a little bit first and see how I liked it, and then shift into getting the degree. That was always kind of my philosophy, and I think it worked out well.
Yeah, I could say it did, and just taking action again. It's all about action, because people go, "Okay, I'm going to settle. I've got this degree. I'm good. I can go get resumes. I've got a degree." You said, "No, I want to be better. I want to get a little bit better." which is a great lesson for people to hear. I tell people all the time, get better 1% every day or more, but make it little steps, not huge steps.
Right.
What is the biggest challenge when people invest from their mindset standpoint?
So specifically in real estate, I think it's really kind of grasping the way the investment itself works. So I think maybe from an education standpoint, but I would also say, so most of the investments that people will invest with me, you kind of alluded to it earlier, it's like a $50,000 minimum investment, right? We're not talking about a small amount of money. So,
Yeah.
this is people's hard-earned money. And so, that's a lot of money to turn over to somebody. And so I think it's being comfortable with that, the risk associated with that. I think the mindset, you just have to have the right kind of mindset to be able to do that. And it's interesting because depending on the type of investment, there's different types of mindsets that you need to have. Because if you're going to invest in venture capital, for example, right, startups and things like that, that's a whole different mindset than the stock market or real estate. That's one out of 10, 15 is going to do really well. The rest are probably all going to bomb. That's a whole nother level of risk that you have to be comfortable with, and you have to have that mindset that, okay, I'm okay with potentially losing everything on 9 out of these 10 investments. Because that one might make up for it. So yeah, the mindset is huge.
And I like the risk, and I'm gonna give you a story, and I know what you're gonna say, but this is apropos. So I got 50,000 in my savings account. We become friends. I like you, and I go, hey, here's my whole 50,000 in my savings account. I want to invest in you. I know you're not just gonna say yes and take my money and run. What's your next step with me?
Well, I would want to make sure that that's not your only money and that you also have some type of an emergency fund set up or something else to fall back on. And it needs to be money that you're okay with being locked up for 5 to 7 years. So yeah, it's not just going to be, okay, well, let's get the money wired in. That's not the right thing to do. So it needs to be something that, you won't need to dip into during that time frame. Sometimes I have people ask me too, well, I want to do like a home equity line of credit to invest in your deal or something like that. And I'm very cautious on that. I tell them, I said, that's fine. You can do that. Make sure though that you can afford those payments that you're going to be making on that home equity line of credit outside of the investment as totally separate, right? If you can't support that, then don't even consider doing it. And some people would say, well, don't even do that. I mean, I did loans for my 401k to invest in houses and stuff like that as well. And people always say, well, don't do that, because you're taking money that could be growing in your 401k. Well, my argument for that is, well, that's true, except I'm not buying a car. I'm putting it in real estate that is another investment, and I'm also paying the interest back to myself. So the argument of, well, you're taking this money out and it's not growing. Well, it is. It's growing somewhere else, and then the interest I'm paying is going back into my account anyway. So it just depends. Sorry, I went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but
No, you answered exactly the way I wanted you to. It's customized to everybody,
right.
And we just got to see the path, which scares me in finance with people. It's like, I've got the best fund in the world, 18% a year for the next 100 years. Like, come on board. And it's like, you can't sell it that way. And you're a salesperson, but a salesperson building relationships. And it really just makes my skin crawl when I hear that. Let them know, like, hey, I'm a plumber. I know I keep picking plumbers, but I guess he was a plumber in my second life. Is, here's the pipes I'm going to fix. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's kind of like the invoice, the project. That's what you're doing. Here's our project, Steve. And you just take me through the steps.
Right. Exactly.
What a great way to invest. My God. This has been an incredible show, Brian. I so appreciate you being on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I want you back.
Pleasure. Okay.
I got to have you back. If you're willing. I know I do this on live recorded show, but that'd be great, because there's so much in this finance and real estate that people need to know, because people are not, especially now, not FOMO's gone. It's just fear. COVID came. What's next? Now interest rates. What's next? Hello, if you would have invested with you, if you had the fund in 2020 and had that money, where would you be today? You'd be better off, no matter what that number is, right?
Yeah, it just depends. There's that's the one thing about with interest rates going up so much, some deals have struggled because some of the
Yeah.
debt on these apartment buildings is with what's called bridge debt, and it's variable rate debt. So like you could look at it like an arm. And so that can create challenges and things like that. So, but you take those lessons, you learn from them, like we talked about earlier, and you just kind of change how you do things. So,
You have such a great attitude about finance. I love, I'm like this, which is fine for what I do. It's fine, but I always tell people you get somebody that wants to work with your finances, make sure they're somewhat neutral. Not
right.
right. You get what I'm saying. Well,
Yeah.
thanks again. I look forward to part two. And I want to say this, as I always say in a podcast, especially this one. He gave you so many tips. Brian is very knowledgeable, and he gave them freely of things you could do for yourself, or you can hire him. But use the forward and reverse buttons to go over those tips. Make sure you understand it. Don't just listen to it once, go, oh, I'm going to go do this. Or reach out to Brian. And Brian, how can they reach out to you?
Best way to reach out to me is just you can shoot me an email, Brian at headstartequity.com. Headstartequity.com is my website. I'm on LinkedIn as well. But yeah, that'd probably be the best way to reach out to me. And I'm happy to, I don't. I have sometimes I have people reach out to me. They're like, I want to flip a house. Okay, well, I'll give you all that I can. I'll help you with everything I can related to that. It's not gonna, like we were talking about earlier, it's not gonna benefit me, but that's okay. I mean, I'm willing to help. I could use all the help I could get when I started. So if I can kind of pay it forward, I'm more than happy to do that.
Amen. That's perfect. So reach out to him. Don't forget my podcast swag, my hats, t-shirts, doing business with a servant's heart. Spread that message out to the world. Wear it on your chest proudly. My TV show, Together We Serve, every Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. I hate time zones. Always forget them. Come watch. It's more about this. And a surprise note about my TV show. Brian doesn't know it, but I'm going to invite him to my TV show because this is, again, an opportunity for him. I just love this. I'm a geek about finance and trading. So selfishly, I just want to hear him again as well. And as I always say, I want to thank you all for watching and listening. Me and Brian really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart.